Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the progressive era. Okay, so what is progressivism? Uh, Progressivism is a time where, kind of in the name, where progress takes precedence over essentially everything else. And it's the idea that society actually and all of its problems can be solved by a big, powerful government taking control and figuring out the best ways to solve these problems. With the modern era and the Industrial Revolution, there were a lot of social issues and economic issues that were a huge problem during this time period, and the progressives thought, hey, the system as it is isn't functioning properly, and the government needs to step in to solve some of these problems. So, for example, private charities are good, but they can't hope to help the enormous number of poor in big cities. The argument is that it's the government that would need to step in to help out these individuals. So, a major goal of progressivism is to abolish corruption and unfair practices in the government, industry, and society in general. Bribery at this time is a huge problem. Corruption is rampant. These huge captains of industry, or robber barons, as we've discussed them, were either looked at as being amazing for progress and change in the country, but they also came with the stigma of paying off government officials in order to get their way and get laws passed that would help them, but not help the common person who's working for their companies. Okay. So some specific goals include combating rising crime, establishing prohibition, and eliminating prostitution. Drinking, since the days of early America, drinking alcohol specifically, was viewed by the church and Protestant and Catholic, but mainly the Protestant churches, as being a huge vice that separated people from not only being good citizens but from God. And so there was a huge movement during this time period to eliminate alcohol overall, and as we'll see later on, an amendment is actually passed prohibiting alcohol, but not during this time period. Okay, and then also eliminating prostitution nationwide, for similar reasons to alcohol. To put these goals into practice means an enormous growth in the power of the government to regulate our lives through rules. Now, back in the original government after Washington, we have the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists popping up. And even before them, under the Articles of Confederation, under our failed government, there was a huge majority movement to have as small a government as possible. And in doing and having a government like this, you would separate people through layers from potential tyranny through a strong, powerful government, like was the problem when we separated from England in the Revolutionary War. And so there's been this fear in America that if the national government gets too big and too powerful, that it will become too controlling, oppressive, and totalitarian, taking away people's rights. And so there's this idea in the progressive movement that on one hand, allowing the government to control and regulate our lives through rules might be a good thing because of how bad things have gotten for the common person during the Industrial Revolution. But on the flip side of that, there's this concern and worry that giving the government too much power is going to lead to tyranny. Results of progressive ideas. Here's just some examples. The recall. It's legislation that got passed where if you get enough petitions signed, you can remove an elected official before their office term expires. This happened to Governor Gray Davis when I was in high school, actually, who was replaced by the Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was pretty fun. The initiative allows voters to bypass elected representatives and propose their own legislation. Okay, and we see this with things like the what was that tax? Not tax. The removal of plastic bags from grocery stores in California a few years ago. Now that vote is starting to go nationwide in many other states. The referendum allows voters to decide whether they will keep or reject laws passed by legislators. And this is really, really important to combat tyranny. Okay? So these are some checks on this tyrannical power. Because like I said earlier, it's about giving the government more power to change and make people's lives better, especially those who are in unfortunate circumstances. But on the other side, there's also this very American worry that if you give the government too much power, if you give politicians too much power, that power will be taken from the people in taking away their rights. And so these are some of the progressive ideas for limiting the government's power while at the same time giving it power to act, for the lives of the people. Okay. Direct election of U.S. senators is another one. Okay. So before this, the senators are elected from the lower house in Congress, from the House of Representatives, and is supposed to provide a kind of an upper echelon of politics in government, where the senators were supposed to be kind of removed a little bit from the common masses and acting just for the good of the people, whether they liked it or not, whether, separated from popular opinion. Problem being here, or a good thing depending on how you look at it, we're now directly electing U.S. senators, and so they're no longer acting as this higher level of authority, separated from the masses. They are directly competing for our affection, just as the congressmen and women in the House of Representatives are. And so it changes the dynamic for how senators work, because now they're trying to please the people instead of just, in theory, doing what is right, based on their education and beliefs. Okay, I'm just going to read this here. The idea behind this was to put elections out of the reach of corrupt state governments and directly into the hands of the people. However, they failed to recognize that such senators would be more likely to follow the immediate desires of the public rather than stand for what was better for the nation in the long run. Thus, a practical part of America's representative government was lost. And there's an argument to be had that possibly we don't need that layer of government, because originally the idea is the unwashed masses, the common people, were uneducated and did not have the education to make wise decisions about and for the future of the nation. But with modern education reforms in the modern education system, the argument is that level of government is no longer needed because people are educated enough to think for themselves. I don't know if that's true, but it might be. Okay. Let's look at a couple amendments. The 17th Amendment. Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislatures. Okay, so this is saying that we get direct vote for these senators now. Okay, and we are going to end our presentation there for today. Expect more videos in the next few days to follow finishing up this series. Bye guys. Thank you.